But those who are imposing wrongdoings and injustice and tyranny realize that when somebody is a martyr in the traditional view, that's very hard for them to counter and just, to say, well, no. So just destroy their whole life, destroy them physically, mentally, any opportunities, everything. Hello, it's March 2024, and I'm going to be talking about something called vilification. Now, I've talked about this, especially over the past decade. However, I've talked about it in the forms of injustice, tyranny, false accusations, false narratives, as well as wrongful convictions. These are all forms of vilification. And vilification is the best, ultimate weapon to destroy, for example, an individual or even perhaps a group. And we see this type of thing throughout known human history. It always has been, always will be. And I'm just going to segue for a moment. Sometimes this vilification can be justified, for example, for a greater good, or even for most people, well, there must have been something, so sure, they accept it. I've also talked about over the years, especially recently, how people have been socially conditioned to accept all these things. But vilification is something that it's a weapon that is used extensively. And it impacts society overall. Because even when you vilify an individual, that impacts people in their lives and branches out into communities, eventually society, civilization. So there's a butterfly effect happening here. It doesn't stop. And the more this goes on, the more people just accept it until it hits home for them. But this whole vilification thing, what can be done about it? Well, as long as people are imposing injustice, tyranny, and doing bad things, perhaps there's really not much that can be done about it except be aware that it happens. How do you become aware? Like, how do you vet information that would vilify someone or an individual? Well, you have to have, for example, independent evidence to prove that vilification of that individual or group is false. Independent evidence. How do you obtain that? And I've highlighted this over the many years as well. You use related, unrelated, independent, direct, indirect sources to vet information. This could be on any topic, even history, for example. So if you want to get to the truth, again, on any topic, you have to go through all these different ways to get to it. Then the truth will simply lay itself out. However, I've talked about going down rabbit holes, where people go down these rabbit holes and speculate and all this other nonsense, and then they get to the truth, but they keep going because they can't either recognize the truth, or there has to be something more. There has to be something deeper, and this whole nonsense of no absolute and forever learning and this other stuff. Yeah, we're always forever learning, improving, but it doesn't mean that once you obtain the truth that, well, there has to be more. You can look at more, for example, with peripheral topics on that, but whatever. But you want to find out if someone has been vilified, or a group. You have to kind of look around that topic. For example, what are other people saying about an individual, or what other societies are saying about a group? What's going on? Some people Like myself, for example, over the many years, I've provided a plethora of independent evidence to support everything that I've said. And for this, a lot of people have been following me for years, and I thank them for doing so. A lot of these people, though, they just didn't jump aboard and watch one of my videos, for example, and say, yeah, I believe. No. These people took the time to go through even my older content and put everything together themselves. And yes, you cannot believe what someone says on its face, because to believe is to make an uninformed conclusion. I want you to repeat that. To believe is to make an uninformed conclusion. Again, on any topic. You can believe, say, for example, an individual, whether it be as a terrible, loose descriptive, a nobody in society, average person, or it could be even a world leader. You can believe what narratives are being said about them. But are they false narratives? Or could they even be true narratives? Usually what we see is false narratives, especially when someone's being vilified. And usually what we see are the ones who are vilifying someone else are the ones who are guilty of whatever or even something. But then again, peripheral information would support that, or even perhaps prove that that's not true. But usually what we see, almost always, that the person pointing the finger is guilty themselves. Now, we got to stop here and just for a moment, because somebody who's whistleblowing and exposing something, you say, well, okay, let's apply that to that individual. Not necessarily. And this is where there's a difference, because someone who has stumbled across information and perhaps even reluctantly tried to expose it, they have no connection to that, for example, topic. They just might have been at the wrong place at the wrong time, or depending on how you look at it, at the right place at the right time, to learn something and then share the information. And this goes into, well, who benefits from sharing this information? Well, when you look at somebody who's whistleblower or exposer of information, did they benefit or did they suffer for it? Perhaps there's your answer on if this individual is legitimate or not. Did they have their lives completely destroyed? Which, in a sense, can kind of be classified, or can classify them as a martyr of some sort. Because traditionally when you think of a martyr, you think of someone who sacrificed her life. But those who are imposing wrongdoings and injustice and tyranny realize that when somebody is a martyr in the traditional view, that's very hard for them to counter and just, to say, well, no. So they just destroy their whole life, destroy them physically, mentally, and the opportunities, everything. And people will try to defend themselves, and then there's opportunity for those who are pointing the finger, doing the wrongs, to counter. And, well, we're living in a world where most people lack critical thinking skills, an extensive knowledge base, and cannot separate their emotions when making conclusions. And here we have how easy it is to vilify someone or even a group. Anyway, just things to think about. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Have been presented as social justice movements. And I even highlighted over the years, even recently, how there are people, for example, suing the government to bring back the very things that others were fighting against. And these people have been successful. And I think I even cited a few cases in
listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me all the time, when is it going to get easier? When you die.